Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to episode number 5 of the Dota 2 recap show. This time around, it is ESL One Berlin Major Edition, and we are getting ourselves into the latter stages of the tournament because the tournament's over. The tournament's done and dusted. It has been finished. We've just decided to crown a champion so far. It means now that we get to talk about the final couple of days of playoffs. As always, we've got Danok and Aries here. You guys might be a little shocked that Danok can keep his arms up for this long already. He is having some issues, so we're just going to leave him as a static picture for now. And
I always have issues.
But this time around, it's issues that we can't hide with a few special things. So we're just going to leave you as a picture now. But Aries, we'll start with you, considering that you have a camera. How are you feeling today, buddy?
Well, it's good, man. I'm feeling good. Just finished the gym, so got home.
Nice.
Perfect time to be able to, record some incredible content for Dota. So yeah,
What'd you hit?
feeling
Come
good.
on.
What I hit, it was a pull day, so back and buys.
Oh.
So we're feeling fucking huge, and our takes are going to be on the ball today.
Damn.
I was pulling some ice cream out of the fridge today. That was my pull day.
Oh shit! I thought that was gonna go bad straight away. I was like, "What? 30 seconds into this? Holy shit!"
Just because I can't be seen doesn't mean I have the full shade of anonymity in front of me. It's not like your random names that you put in some online games just so that you could talk shit with no repercussion.
That's me whenever I play like those online games like Gartic Phone and all that kind of stuff, just so I can be the guy who draws like penises consistently and people don't know who I am. But
I'll do that under Danok. I don't care.
this guy's a baller. This guy's a baller. But with that, it is the end of the ESL One Berlin Major, the second major of the year as well. We've only got one more left before we start getting in towards the talks about TI, lads. And once again, it is Gaming Gladiators who came out on top. So 2 majors in a row, these guys were able to get the dub. I believe across both of the majors, they only dropped a grand total of, one map in the playoffs? That's ridiculous, the fact that this team has looked so good for the last couple of months and are really starting to get towards the top, and seeing how they look when it comes to international competition has been a sight to behold. But again, Liquid came in second, so that's another team that has been consistently pretty strong right now in the international scene. 2 Western European teams. I know a lot of people are talking about Western Europe being like this extremely strong region right now, but I think it is kind of...
I haven't heard people talk about Western Europe being a really strong region.
Yeah, maybe they should keep speaking about it a little bit longer. Maybe
Yeah.
another year, and it might actually click for some people.
Well, the thing is they still have to perform at TI, so that's the real
true.
question. Is they can do all they want throughout majors.
I mean, they got
but...
top 3 last TI. So.
Hey, we don't talk about that. Okay, we don't want to give these Western Europeans any more of an ego that they've got. But again, Western European teams are coming out on top. Some of the other regions are slowly starting to claw their way up, but at the end of the day, it is going to be Western European teams. And I mean, the fact that Gaming Gladiators and Liquid are the 2 teams that are setting the tempo when it comes to the patch right now. I mean, going into tour number 3 of the DPSC, I feel like more Western European teams are going to be just as good, right?
I'll let you field that one.
Oh, you give that one to me, will you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I think always Western Europe, the region's going to be very strong with the top teams that they have. So anyone underneath their practice is going to be far superior to something like Southeast Asia or China. So I don't think it really matters on what patch is kind of, maybe a little bit, but it just regardless, if you have the best teams in the world, you're scrimming against them, you're playing against them in pubs on a daily basis, you're going to get better at a much faster rate than anyone else.
And I mean, I guess with some more of these Dream Leagues floating around as well, like we don't know what Dream League Season 20 is going to look like either. So maybe some of these teams are getting a little bit of a helping hand from the Western European teams playing against them a little bit more heading into TI. But at the end of the day, TI is a completely different beast. And I think over the last like 3 or 4 years, even like no team that was like super favored going into it has won it. Yeah, they've made it to finals and stuff like that. But a lot of the time it felt like kind of underdogs throughout most of these last couple of TIs. So
can I just say as well, 2 of the top 3 came from last chance qualifiers, and that ain't gonna be a thing this time around. So,
do we want to speak about that now? Because that got me pretty pissed. So.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about it now. We'll throw it in before we start talking about the results. So, for those of you who aren't aware at home, TI's format
as of now, may change. Never know. Probably not going to happen though.
Yeah. So TI's format has been announced. I'm going to bring it up on Liquipedia to see if it is around so I can triple check, but they did reveal that it is going to be back in Seattle. So that's a big congratulations to the North American fans out there who are going to have another home TI.
Big uncongratulations to anyone from the Philippines.
Yeah, big uncongratulations to a lot of people from the Philippines, a lot of the Russian players. There's going to be potentially a lot of issues that are going to be appearing here in TI, but that's a completely different idea. But yes, they have announced the format, and there is no last chance qualifiers. I think last chance qualifiers, all three of us can agree on this, I'd imagine, was
They're amazing.
the greatest thing to come to TI in a very, very long time. Not only did it give more teams opportunities to play more Dota, we got more TI Dota, we got more people involved in TI, and the fact that the two teams that came out of last chance qualifier came second and third, I think that just means in and of itself that it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't think
It's crazy.
anything else needs to be said. The two teams that qualified finished second and third. That should be left there. Like, that's as simple as that. Why is there not last chance?
Why 18 as well? 20 is a nice round number. It doesn't throw off the groups too much. It gives us, a couple more series per day. It doesn't break the backs of any, organizers or anything like that. And it's just more Dota, right? Like, the thing that I loved most about Last Chance Qualifiers is that it completely silenced all the people that were like, why are Execration here? Nigma could beat them. But then, if Nigma don't make it through the last chance qualifiers, then they probably don't deserve to be there, know? Like, it gives everyone that equal opportunity on equal footing to be able to play and blah, 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 blah. To be fair, though, this year, the International only lasts for 3 days, according to the blog posts. Everything else prior to that is the road to the International. So who knows? Is there, obviously group stage is always done out of a hotel, but are the first round or two of the playoffs not going to be done in an arena at all, like they were this year in Singapore? I don't know.
That's kind of crazy to me. On the 3 days are going to be televised.
At least it's 3 now. At least it's 3. It was 2 previously, so they just had to jam everything into those 2 days. But I think it should be. This should be top 8, right? That gets televised in Key Arena, which is now the Climate Change Arena or something like that.
The Climate Action Arena.
Climate Action, whatever. I think I can understand if you wanted to do like the best of ones in a hotel or something like that, I don't know. It's weird to me. I think there should be a crowd for something. It's just how are they going to do it? I don't know.
Yeah, so really the big thing that we don't know is just the logistics around last chance qualifiers and how expensive it was, and really everything, the infrastructure and behind the scene.
Especially in Singapore, right? It costs a lot to fly people to Singapore from where most people attending were not from Singapore or anywhere close to Singapore.
And I thought I heard, I heard on like a Monkey Business podcast where Seb and Notel were speaking about LCQ a while ago, and if I remember correctly, they were saying that like people from Valve actually really liked the format. They think it was an incredible addition to it. So I don't know what has happened for it to be removed, because we both agree, and I think a lot of people agree, it was by far the best addition, I think, to TI. So something, there might just logistics, it must not work out. There must be something else behind the scene, because I don't know why you would get rid of it.
Yeah, it's like to me, it just. Yeah.
Even if they only brought the second place team, that'd still be okay.
From each qualifier.
From each qualifier, yes. So there's 6 teams playing off for 2 spots. I would be fine with that. And then you can do like a round robin where they all play against each other, 2 get eliminated, and then it's like, go on from there or whatever.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair. Like, even just. Yeah, like it just adds that little bit of extra, and I think also, as you guys touched on, the wording around the post as well is very kind of weird when they talk about the road to the international, and the fact that the international itself is literally only 3 days is very weird, and it leads me towards that there's going to be some change ups in the way that it works and the way that they're going to be having their wording and their branding around the international. They have said in the blog post that there will be more details about ticketing and the road to the international closer to the event. So maybe we can expect like some ideas coming out of the next major in Bali. But this is a massive kick in the nuts to a lot of different teams and a lot of different regions as well. The fact that they're taking away LCQ.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that whenever you held an event in Seattle, like Valve is right there, so they can do a lot more things, a lot more hands-on as well. So I was thinking, if anything, this would be like, a big return to the glory days of TI. Like I went to TI 8, for example. So that was, again, not in Seattle, but close enough. And it was a big spectacle. You could go to every single day of those playoffs. There was plenty of stuff to do and all that sort of thing. So I guess ever since then, it's just things have changed. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Obviously we all want what's best for Dota, but it's just a balancing act of what's best for teams, what's best for Valve, what's best for so on and so forth. Who knows?
Change is fine, but if you find something that works and then you get rid of it, it doesn't really make sense. And like you tried something with LCQ, it worked really fucking well, like really well, and now it's not there. So hopefully some decisions will be made to bring it back. Like maybe we're even getting ahead of ourselves as well. Like you said, they haven't really released the full roadmap, but you'd kind of want that to be out as soon as possible if there was going to be an LCQ. But we shall find out. We're all at the mercy of Lord Valve.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like, at the end of the day, like they haven't explicitly said that it's going away, but there has been the quote unquote like format been put on Liquipedia, and it does not include LCQ and all the dates and stuff. Talk about the group stages,
but we know Liquipedia and Valve are not always in sync.
Yeah, exactly.
PP fanatics. So
and the thing is, when I'm looking at the Liquipedia as well, it actually has the last chance qualifier as a tab. So I don't know.
It does actually. Yeah,
so who knows? Who knows? It is one of those things that because they haven't explicitly said it is returning for 2023. It does kind of leave a lot of us really upset about it, because I think it has been one of the great things to come towards TI. But at the end of the day, we can't kick up a stink until we have had confirmation that it is or is not returning. And
so just to segue things back in, unless you guys have other things to talk about with TI, yes, no?
No, I'm pretty good with that. Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk also about the fact that now Gaming Gladiators have won 2 majors and aren't technically qualified to TI?
Yeah.
That's that's kind of the second part about the LCQ, right? Is that rectifies some of the issues when it comes to the DPC points. I think DPC points are a good idea. They're not perfect by any means, because we have seen multiple teams be able to squeak themselves into TI by not even doing anything at a major and just winning their region.
Dominance.
Yeah, region dominance,
like
and getting a lot of points.
Are in a really good spot right now, but they have got 0 points from majors, but they're only slightly behind EG, I think.
Yep.
So that's the issue,
it even goes back to like a couple of years ago. I remember when like Alliance were doing really well in, I think it was Alliance and Asta were doing like really well in their region and getting high points, and then getting placed in like the playoffs. Because remember, it was like you had a wild card group stage, and they got placed in playoffs and they got first rounded straight away. So we've always had kind of issues with DPC. I think now it looks even a little bit worse, because you got teams like TSM, who were coming first in their region. They're higher points and major winners. They're probably going to qualify to TI just because they're in an easier region, and they're bombing out of the major.
Yeah.
Like there has to be a change. It can't keep going on where Gladiators are not already guaranteed. They should be a higher points over than Liquid. I mean, do we both agree? Like
major, I think that's good enough.
If you win one major, should you be guaranteed like how it used to be?
I don't know if it's one major. I feel like the first, because they tried to rectify that with making the majors eventually get more and more points, right? So obviously the first major was 400 points, second major was 500 DPC points. So you end up getting roughly about 50% more. Actually, no, it's less than that. It's about 25% more for winning the majors than you do for winning your tour in Tour 2. And then Tour 3 is going to be a lot more because you're a lot closer to TI. I feel like at least the second major should guarantee you to TI, because that's close enough, I think, to TI that you can't be a team. Because the thing is, from Lima Major to Berlin Major, it was a massive patch in the middle, right? I don't think many teams have really changed in regard to a lot of the power rankings. Obviously, Gaming Gladiators winning both kind of mutes that argument. But there is potentially times where, you win the first major and then you completely drop off for the rest of the year and then you get auto-invited to TI, and that puts out a team who has a bit of resurgence towards TI, and then they're the ones that miss out. And you get all these
That's where the last chance qualifiers go.
and that's where, that's when we start talking about a lot of these other conversations where I think the last chance qualifier fixes all of the issues with all these different formats and just says, hey, we may have gotten it wrong with some of these teams, but they're going to go through the last chance qualifier and they need to prove to us now that they are the team that is in form and will eventually do well at TO.
Yeah, I think you just need to bump up the major points a little bit, across the board, all three. Just give another, I don't know, 100 to I don't think it's worth going from 550 points to 600 points, going from second to first, for example, at the Bali Major. I think it should be worth more than that. The prize pool doubles. Why does your DPC points only go up by whatever percent that is, 15%?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is a system that needs some help, because I'm currently looking at the standings right now. Talent, they've done pretty well throughout the majors.
Talent deserve to be where they're at.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
So they're in a good spot, but
EG deserve to be where they're at.
As you guys have said, teams like Beast Coast and TSM, who have really not been able to do much when it comes to the majors, they're both sitting on the same amount of points because they've topped their region twice.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even take a look at Execration. They're in top 12. Bet Boom in top 12, and these are both also two extra teams who've done nothing at the major. So. I do really think next year we'll actually get a change in points. I think more than likely, you'll just reduce a little bit from the regions and then add those points to the major. And I think maybe that'll solve some of the issues that we have currently.
Yeah, especially because TI is international competition, right? I think, and the fact that some of these teams just get off on region dominance it's nice to have.
It's a balancing act. You should have all regions at TI, and
yes.
I think you need to have enough points during the leagues that allows that, but not at the expense of teams that are doing really well at the LAN events, potentially not qualifying. For all intents and purposes, Gaming are going to be there. Qualification last time around was I think 1,020 points.
They're literally less than 100 points off the cutoff, by the way.
They're not going to miss, but there's the potential that, I don't know, Tundra could miss, for example. And I'd say Tundra's done fairly decently throughout.
Mm-hmm. They've done kind of okay when it comes to their points. But yeah, I think so. According to Liquipedia, the cutoff right now is 1325.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that's our little rant done. Let's talk about the major.
All right. Let's get into it. So, obviously, the major has been done. So, let's go and have a look back at some of the results. Gaming Gladiators got themselves a first. Team Liquid got themselves second. 9 Pandas, my boys, got into that top 3, getting me 2 out of 3 when it comes to top 3. EG finished top 4, which I don't think is surprising. I think they've finally started to hit their stride when it comes to that team. And that team still has a very high skill ceiling, personally, for them to get a little bit further in the majors. Yes, EG almost made it all the way towards there. And then a few other teams that are floating down. Tundra and OG got themselves 5th, 6th. Asta and Talon got themselves 7th to 8th. And then the rest of the teams were really kind of only talked about to... some of them didn't even make it out of groups and stuff like that. But yeah, some other teams just got absolutely bubkissed. So how do we feel about this? Let's say this top 6. How do we feel about this top 6 from this major? Is there many surprises? Is there any issues with some of the teams that weren't there? Some of the teams that were there? What do we got, boys?
OG surprised me a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Mind Control is just an amazing sub whenever he, decides to come in and play. And I thought Kitrak had a pretty good performance as well. So big props to them for being able to get this. Did they get impacted by any negative points as well as a result of this, or was it Valve being lenient and basically saying, look, this was completely out of your control. You can't control visas, blah, 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 blah. On the Liquipedia page, it doesn't seem like it, but you never know.
It shows they got full 300, which is
yes, but
6.
Liquipedia, you never know. I love Liquipedia, just disclaimer there, but you can't take it as the absolute gospel.
I'm going to check their official Dota 2 DPC leaderboard.
Oh, true. But that one didn't even update last year, I don't think.
This is the MMR leaderboard.
Regardless, though,
me.
I think OG had. I was very impressed with their run, and I was hoping they'd go a little bit further. To be honest, you're a little bit selfish just for the content, but I was looking forward to the MC Kitrak run with all the boys, because it looked like they formed quite the bond at a very rapid rate. I mean, there was a lot of photos going out on Twitter with like MC and BZM and Uragi. So yeah, I mean, like you said, my control standing in doesn't matter. This boy performs, and it was just good to see like how they were all able to click on all cylinders at a pretty rapid rate. I was quite surprised OG placed as high as they did, but I wish they did a bit better in the end.
I mean, Mind Control and BZM are both Bulgarian boys, so they're obviously going to have that in common. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things move on forward. Especially like, I mean, is it over the time that you can drop people from your roster? I think it's either going to be done very soon or it's already done. But I know there's a bunch of apparently shocking changes going around.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of rosters that are moving around right now, and I still think there is some time left. Maybe it's like another day or two, because DPC doesn't start for like another week, right?
It's like the time where you can add people is still available for another couple of days, but the time where you can drop people is like basically done. I think.
Oh, okay.
MC's at least on Liquipedia, but he's on the Enigma roster.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys have seen the PuckChamp roster, but that is
Oh,
wild.
that is some shit. That is
Yeah.
oh,
that is
some
spite,
things.
is what that is.
That is
there is
spite.
some
That's
things that
that's a big FU, and
Yeah.
we'll buy a slot instead. You're gonna fucking kick us out. We'll buy a slot.
There's a lot of things I would like
they
to
might
talk
still
about.
do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be allowed to stay. Personally, I feel
do
like
you mean?
that. Well,
Why
the thing
not?
is like the ban was for their roster, for the players. It's not the team name that carries the ban. It's the players. So I think they're going to get kicked out.
I don't know.
Personally, that's what I think. I think
The time to drop players is gone. You can
Yes.
add players for another 3.5 days.
Okay, so some of these rosters could still have some, and people can get moved to ineligible. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think OG did pretty well, considering that they had some stand-ins, and I think MC really shows that even though that Nigma is starting to fall a little bit, dropping out of Div 1 once again, a lot of these players, even with Samael, now going all the way over to Asta, like has proven that a lot of these
For 1.5 years, by the way.
Yeah.
because I remember reading the Reddit post about that, and they were saying that he doesn't just want to be like a TI guy and they just fuck him off, he wants to sit here and play and get a lot of work done, and apparently he's on a whole boatload of money over there too.
Did you hear the Chad response to the like? He was like, blah blah blah. If we don't qualify, he's like, don't worry, I'm here. We'll
I saw that.
qualify."
Yeah.
He's like, I'm on the roster, we qualified a TI, and I'm like, damn, the king is back, baby, and he's been playing really well. So I think Asta really impressed me as well, getting themselves to just outside of the 6. I would have liked for them to get in there, but I think the teams that are in the top 6, it's very hard to you could have made an argument for any one of those teams to be in the top 6 and be happy with it, right? So I think the way that this major has been going, I don't think there's many disappointments with the top 6. I don't think there's too many surprises. I was really happy with 9 Pandas actually clicking and getting to the point. Their mid player, Kiyotaka is his name, right?
Kiyotaka.
He's an absolute machine. Like that guy, he's a freak. And I think he's kind of turbo carrying that team pretty hardcore as well.
Didn't
in a lot
Asta
of those
say they
games.
were potentially looking at getting Kiyotaka? If they
Yeah,
could
him
get
and
Samael?
who was the other one? Him and Thompson it was Kiyotaka and Thompson with the other two.
Man, they just really hate the Chinese mid laners.
Yeah, tough.
Hey, switch up the
Yeah,
region. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's good.
The fact that 9 Pandas placed as well as they did with Roger coming in as well, we've got to keep in mind that's a stand-in. I heard Solo was helping them a lot with drafting still, so they still had their kind of 5 at least helping out, but that's a
I
young.
rated them very highly going into the major. I just thought that with a stand-in, it would bring them
Yeah.
down.
I was concerned with their Lima result that they didn't place as well as what was
Standard
expected. Say, yeah. Who stood in for them at Lima?
Uragi, I think, was playing for.
That's right. That's
Dahak.
right. Yep.
Mm.
Man, this could be a really CIS is a very exciting region. You got Pandas, you got Spirit, you got Bet Boom. I mean, Navi and VP have all kind of shit the bed this year overall, but like that's still a region that's growing very, very strong with that recent TI win from Spirit of previous year, I should say. So that's definitely a region to look out for. And I mean, 9 Pandas, they did not crumble under the pressure. I mean, the last series, Kiyotaka had a couple of rough games, but that's one a couple of games. Like you said, this guy performed at such a high level, and honestly, for what was that his first LAN as well? Actually,
I think so.
so I mean that's incredibly impressive. One for
He's only
me for
18.
yeah,
He's
I
depressed
mean,
kid. So
yeah.
yeah.
Change your name and all of a sudden you rebrand and now
It's
you're
still
fucking
weeb related
awesome.
though. Let's go.
That's true. Kiyotaka is a better name than Depressed Kid though. So
Depressed
It's
Kid
from
is very bad.
it's the main character from an anime called Classroom of the Elite. Good anime. by the
Kiyotaka
way.
is
Yes.
okay. So I want to talk about Extreme a little bit. I had high expectations for them. I mean, this is a team that you just go through their roster. Like that is the experience on there is through the roof. Goes Paparazzi, JT, Kaka, and DY, of course, coached by Lennon, one of the best in China, and also everyone like kind of agrees as well with Lennon being up there. So for Extreme, I was a bit disappointed considering they spoke a lot about how Kaka, with the addition of him coming into the team, really fixed a lot of their mid game issues that they had prior when PYW was still there. And this is something that Paparazzi said in an interview. He just loves Kaka's addition because he refills the bottles constantly and makes a lot of early game rotations. But I'm kind of surprised Extreme didn't perform as well as they did. Like China truly is on a rocky stage right now.
And that's I'm sitting here and just waiting for the resurgence of Chinese Dota, and I don't know where it's going to come from because I feel like that there's a lot of
Sumail.
there's a lot of star-studded players that are playing on all these three big rosters. You know, we talked about like Asta, Extreme, and PSG LGD, and they're just not performing internationally. I don't know if it's anything to do with like the patches or the fact that their region is slowly declining. Like I'm not really sure like what the issue is with China. They've obviously had a bit of drama that's been floating around in their region over the past couple of months as well. So maybe that could be getting a lot of them down. But
Vici just expanded.
yeah, it's just like I'm just not sure what it is from these Chinese teams, but they have some insane players and some amazing players, and they just have not been able to do it on the international stage. And I'm just waiting until they come back and clap everybody again.
Did you see who bought YBB's spot though?
No, actually, who did?
So it's a team called Azure now, and it's a team with Lu,
Yeah.
Somnus, Chalice, FY, and
Tianming, Victoria.
Tianming, yeah.
Not Victoria, sorry, Destiny.
So Elephant 2.0, basically, right? Another.
No, I mean kind of old LGD.
True.
Somnus, Chalice,
I
FY.
wouldn't say Elephant 2.0 because Lu and Tianming are not at the caliber that Eurus and Red Panda were on that Elephant team. But
I like that Tianming's getting the opportunity.
Yeah, was he not 4? He was a 4, right?
I think he's played a bit of both because I remember when he was playing. Oh, what was his previous team that was playing
with
on
ZZQ.
ZZQ.
It was playing the 5. So.
Okay. Yep. There you go. I don't remember what the previous team was. I'm trying to think now.
I mean, YBB and eHome.
Another little thing is that LGD dropped Zeal, which is, to continue speaking about.
Not the Magnus.
Yeah, that was a rough performance. Unfortunately, you have some bad games, and like, right, that's enough. So no more Zeal, which is a bit. I'm sure Matt and I are a little bit cut for Zeal because we've seen him in Southeast Asia a little bit, which was nice. He gave great interviews over in the recent major as well. But that's another thing. Like this is 2 tours now. LGD have gotten rid of their 3, so they had Zhang Yu in the first DPC, the first tour, and now Zeal, and now I don't know who the hell they're going to get next as well for the third tour. I don't know what Faith Beyond's doing.
I don't know.
Say that again.
Who's even a free agent to be picked up?
Old 11, Yang, because Vici dropped it.
Old 11 during.
Yeah, I don't. They did. I don't know if that was a try or if that was just a substitute thing, but Yang, of course, off Vici now, so I don't know if he's going to play 3 or 5, but that's someone else. But just the big thing about China in general, like really for them and LGD in particular, they build their teams and they stick with their players through a lot of months and years to be able to form that chemistry, and already they're having some issues with the position 3, so that's just going to continue to further the time on when China will come back.
Do you think the position 3 is the most important role in Dota right now, or at least the most in demand role in Dota for like a good 3 player?
Yeah. I definitely think in demand, because we've heard a lot of people speak about that. It's a role that's not a lot of people are towards the top. Like you only have a handful. That's why we see a lot of people switching to 3. I mean, Resolution for one. I'm sure we can. I mean, Nightfall. There's definitely others.
Res is going to
Ramsey's tried
LGT.
to.
Let's go.
Seb's making a
There we
return
go,
back
we
to
cracked
3
it.
as well.
Yep,
So-
yep. I mean, dude, Seb's been fucking spamming it. I don't know if you've seen his Dota Pro tracker. He's played
Yeah.
like 140 games in 7 days. That dude's an animal. But yeah, position 3 right now is definitely like the hot commodity. If you're able to find a good 3 and stick with it, then you're chilling.
I mean, look at a lot of the top teams. Their offlaners are, you know, insane stars in and of themselves. So
Yeah,
I think it is a very, very important role.
fucking Gaming Gladiators. Ace is by far the most stable 3 I think I've ever seen. He's so incredible, dude. Ace, who the fuck is Tofu? Where did Tofu come from? Like, what? This League of Legends player, semi-league pro that comes out of nowhere. Just,
The one fluffy unicorn.
dude, Tofu's just so good at Dota. They all
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Quinn had some rough years in NA, and then to see him performing, and
He
a lot
looks
of
so
people knew
happy
he
now,
looks
man.
so happy. And then we got to see as well the rivalry on the main stage too. We got to see Quinn versus Ramses, which was there wasn't as much said. That game 1, which they threw the lead on 9 Pandas, was very funny, where they were tipping back and forth in the early game. Then I think they threw went 39 minutes in, but I had a huge lead, and then all of a sudden the tips go back their way.
Ramses died on the Bloodseeker, and it was like 15 tips in a row.
Yeah. So that's good to see. Good to see some rivalry on the main stage.
Yeah, there definitely is. We'll get into a little bit more about that rivalry stuff because it's something that I love talking about a whole lot. So, I mean, is there anything? Do we feel like the ideas about the patches really changed coming from group stages to playoffs? I think there was a few heroes that got a little bit more priority as we started going deeper and deeper. I know Liquid were really starting to love their Ancient Apparition. It didn't really work out for them in some of the games, but it was an idea for them to go towards that in regards to, you know, things like the Alchemist and the Underlord and what have you. Do we feel like the meta changed all too much going through the playoffs?
No, I mean, it's still like the Deucer Alchemist offlane aura builder meta, in my opinion. Like, nothing too much changed with regards to that. I think there was a little bit more prevalence of stuff like Skywrath coming through, just stuff that was actually able to secure kills with a massive unblockable burst of damage, like Pipe, Greaves, who cares, Mystic Flare, as long as you keep someone inside of that for the full duration, they're gonna die. And I think that's what people are really started to at least lean a little bit more towards.
And obviously there was a whole lot of coddle coming out of Gaming Gladiators as well, which I think was cool, the way that they were abusing that with a lot of these other different heroes. And I think Oracle became super high priority as well for some of these teams because they figured out how strong that hero has been over the last recent couple of buffs.
When it's not bugged, it's a really strong hero. The start of the patch where everything was broken about it, and it was literally worse when you used your ult on people. But no, just the Fate's Edict change is so massive.
Yeah, it makes the hero viable now, which is nice because we haven't seen Oracle in quite some time. But I can't think of any real big changes off the top of my head. That maybe it was just some teams have a little bit different of priority on their heroes that they want to pick in the first phase, but really nothing too crazy from group stages to playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to stay relatively similar because we've got about a week until DPC starts back up again.
I hope we get a patch, dude. I really hope we get a letter patch. Yeah. I think.
What do you want to change?
Get rid of the fucking auras. Yeah. I mean, you got to do something with Deucer and Elk because those are the 2 heroes that have innate abilities and they're broken. So that probably has to sing out to them. If you're gonna change a hero and give them an innate ability, they're gonna be fucking busted unless you really tweak the numbers because they were just dumb off the rip. I mean, you got to do something about the auras. But I'm worried though if they nerf auras and people aren't going to team fight and then they're just going to play the map, and I don't really want that.
So like 60-minute average games if they get rid of auras.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about auras. We get early team fights. Maybe they can up the gold bounty a little bit even higher. I don't know if that's even, that might just be too dumb by them. But yeah, I just want like, you know, some of the
tweak. They tweaked the Chen creeps, for example. They could do the same to Pipe and all that.
And that's really it. Just tweak the auras a little bit, make it so the offlane hero pool is not super low. Like you can't have blink initiators, no centaur, no axe, no legion, etc. I mean, a handful of times. So just, you know, do that a little bit. Did you guys have any issues with the rifts? Because of course, in
like 'em.
the B patch, they up the time by
1
like a
second.
By a
second.
second.
Do,
Yeah.
do you guys feel like that's enough? I know people have mentioned like a cooldown, maybe not being active for the first 5-10 minutes, or having like a 31-minute cooldown. What do we think after that B
Hell
patch?
no. Keep them. I think anything that encourages active play should be as usable as possible.
Yeah, I think if they wanted to add like a timer to them, I think they would have to buff them after the fact. I think they would have to like maybe give you like a move speed buff or something once you use them, or if you want to like stop them from being like a minute zero kind of deal. I like that idea. I think the way that they set it up with the fact that you can't take over that shrine, so you're always going to have control of a twin gate, and you've always got that watcher that's around as well. It's a decent spot to be able to put a ward. I think they're perfectly fine. I like the idea behind them, and I like how if you have vision of them too, you get the audio cue when somebody comes through them. So
Yeah.
you don't even have to look to see if somebody's there. So
I still want the
think they've got a
Tormentors
good-
moved as well. That's the other thing.
you think the tormentors are in a bad spot?
They're too secluded. If they swapped them with like the traditional ancient camp area, great. I just think there's way too much value in the side lanes right now. And if you put it a little bit closer to mid, maybe there's value taking that mid tier 1 tower because it opens up the stairs to be able to go into the Tormentor area and steal it without like committing the extra 15 seconds that you need to go into this tiny little funnel where the enemy team's got a watcher that can see right what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Which
do
is-
think stealing tormentors is a little scuffed right now.
Just put them at the old Roche pits. Put them in the sides of the river. Make them.
You know, I
make
think
people
that's too
battle over it.
central. People are just going to be getting zapped while they're fighting.
That is true, actually. Maybe then you have to like reduce the radius of who gets zapped. Yeah, that could be an issue, just dying to the tormentor. But no, with again with the letter patch, do it before Division 1 starts, because some Division 2 players had a fucking uproar about the patch dropping, and they just wanted to cry about something. So just you've had plenty of time. We're not going to do that, because I actually
well, they're not Division 2 players anymore.
That's true. That's true. You had a full major of data to go off of group stages and playoffs. So what's broken? You shouldn't need more time. Just drop a letter patch before 2 or 3 starts, and because when are you going to do? Are you going to do it again when Division 2 starts? Then it's like a little bit more iffy on the timing, because it's not like it's been 2 fucking years since you dropped a huge patch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
that's
agree
my
with
hope
you.
at least.
I definitely feel like there's some things that need to get changed. Maybe the scaling on Crimson Guard needs to get nerfed again, because it got nerfed from like 35 to 30% or something like that. So get rid of that a little bit more. As an offlane player, I would love to play more of the Blink Initiators. I feel like I haven't built a fucking Blink Dagger since the patch dropped. It's literally pipe Garib's Crimson every game, and it's getting...
Well, at least you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, like the good boy you are, making
Whenever
sure.
I see people
Hey, I
like
need
a strength hero
MMR.
that doesn't buy Crimson Guard, I'm like, goodbye, 30 MMR.
Yeah, I need MMR, so that's why I'm literally just picking Underlord, or if I pick some hero, I build a Vanguard, and then I disassemble it into a pipe. Maybe that's something they need to change as well. Maybe they need to change the disassembling rules, because I know that's something that a lot of these offlaners are abusing with like Vanguard into auras. Is the disassembly if you don't want Crimson that game.
Just fucking increase the price of Ring of Health. Don't make it 700. That's so silly.
You shouldn't be able to buy it, like, go naked to a lane and buy it after the 2 bounties, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the scuff part about it. Is it's super easy to get Ring, and then a lot of these heroes are a little strong, or maybe they're just going to nerf the aura buyers. Like they're just going to reduce their armor, reduce their HP, or something like that early on, so they get punished if they want to try and go for this naked stuff. Who knows? It's Ice Frog. He'll figure something out, and he will get it. So I would like to see a patch, but whether or not we will get it. So I think it's a good time for us to move on. We're about almost 2/3 of the way through this episode, and there's a lot for us to talk about. I think, going over this major, there was a sick little run from Liquid in the lower bracket. So the way that they played that, I'm super impressed with how they got over the top of OG after losing that game. I do want to talk about something that we have touched on, though, the fact that people are calling Gaming Gladiators the most dominant team in Dota's history.
No.
Do we think that title is appropriate for these guys? When I heard it, I was shocked that people were pushing this kind of narrative. I was like, this is cap. I was like, this is actually cap. They've won 2 majors in a row, and they
won Dream League.
They won Dream League. And yes, I understand that they're a dominant team, but calling them
when he said Dream League,
the most dominant team in Dota history is
No.
that's a little cap to me.
Yeah, agreed. They've been good for 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah.
They have not gotten first in either of their leagues. Like they got third this time around, I think, and they got second in the first tour. You compare that to, I think you wrote down a couple of examples like Secret during COVID era. You have OG winning 4 majors and 2 TIs. That seems pretty dominant to me. Even like VP, old VP with Ramses, Roger, Pasha, Solo, like that no one. That was a really dominant roster at the time. They were winning absolutely everything. It was like, the Russian winter that they were winning everything, but, and then TI comes around and they weren't quite as strong, but they were still in a really strong spot for a really long time. So Gaiman, they're looking really solid, but they're not greatest of all time just yet.
Win the Bali Major and win Dream League 20 and TI and
Riyadh.
And Riyadh, and then
Yeah.
we might have some discussions. Like, I don't know, it's just definitely too early
Honestly,
to call.
even if that happens, I think people won't say that they're the most dominant team of all time. I think those people will say they'll have had the most dominant year of all time, but until they back it up, kind of like OG did, that teams won't feel that way.
Yeah,
like winning 2 TIs in a row with all the adversity that they went through. Like OG, in my opinion, I'm a little bit of a fanboy, but they're just on another level. That roster.
Yeah, I think the way that OG went about those 2 TI wins, I don't think you can ever say that any of those 5 players are not, one of the most dominant rosters that we've ever seen. I don't think anybody will ever be able to beat that. So I am glad that I do understand why people, why a lot of the talent we're talking about it. It is kind of one of those cool storylines, right? Where you talk about a team that has won 2 majors in a row. The fact that, they also did say that they broke a record in that they've topped both of their groups and both the majors and then gone on to win it. Nobody's been able to do that back to back yet. So that's fairly dominant in and of itself, but there still is, there's plenty of the year to go. There's still TI, there's still the Bali Major, and we've seen what happens to some of these top teams when they go into TI. So they're good. They're very, very good, but they're not at the history topping just yet. So
no, I could make an argument for like top 5.
Yeah,
I think they could be a part of the top 5 teams of all time.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive stuff. So on the other end of the scale, though, I think there has been some pretty disappointing teams. We've already touched on this a little bit with like with LGD being a little disappointing. The fact that they got 2-0'd in their lower bracket. They've already kicked Zeal out. They've got a lot of rethinking to do heading in towards TI. But my big one is Shopify Rebellion, and I don't know what it is with this team, but I've been a fan of these guys for a very, very long time. A fan of a lot of these players. Been watching them, been following them through majors, been following them through everything. And for some reason, whenever they have a good time in group stages, they get to playoffs and shit the bed. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's they learn some bad habits from the group stages. Things are too easy for them. They don't get pushed. They get complacent, what have you. But again, it's another major where they do pretty well in their groups. They don't do amazing. They went 10-6. They finished 4th in that group. But they get in a playoffs, and that first series against 9 Pandas, that was rough to watch, man. That was, especially that game 1 when they lost that game 1. I was basically already telling them to pack their bags. That was not good to watch. Thoughts?
Damn.
This is just a frustrated fan. This is all this is. This is a frustrated fan who stays up to watch these guys play, and then stuff like
you
this
want a
happens.
refund?
No, but I just don't know what it is. Like I really. Does anybody have any ideas? Like what happened to Shopify?
I wish I had a.
Can I give you a theory?
Give me some copium. Give me some.
How much
give me
is
something.
true? Well, a lot of people like to cheese on Bulba, right? Where like, oh, all of his drafts are the same, blah 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 blah. But as a team, that can be really useful, knowing that like, all right, this is how we're going to play. We've got a very set, defined way of being able to play. It just makes it very comfortable to be able to play. But if you give people time to be able to figure that out, as in the playoffs and the little bit of the break that you get to be able to go over it, maybe it doesn't work so well if, teams have the moments to be able to think up the sort of strategy that's going to beat you. So while it might do well in the group stage, having a lot of this reliable Dota where teams, they're playing 50 million games a day in terms of scrims and officials, they can't figure it out. But when they do get that little bit of a break and they, get a chance to sit back and watch these games being played one at a time, then it can become a little bit more difficult.
I didn't get to see the playoff games for Shopify versus Pandas and than versus EG. So I'm not quite sure what happened in that series, but the games that I did see, it looked like Saber maybe had an off major, and I don't know if you can have that as a position 3 when we just spoke about earlier how vital the threes are. So I don't know. I'm also a very big fan of Shopify. I like a lot of the players on their team. I mean, this is, I guess we'll see what they're able to do heading in, but it is kind of getting to a stage where you need to be getting some results from them pretty shortly.
And especially if they're not topping their region either with DPC points. Yeah, it is only a small amount of DPC points, but we've seen what happens when you miss out on a small amount of DPC points. So
yeah,
they may need to figure it out. But at the end of the day, it's just a frustrated fan to me seeing them fall out. I don't think there was many other teams that we expected to go kind of hard, especially with some of the matchups that we saw as well. I think for Tundra, they kind of drew the raw end of the stick when they went up against Team Liquid in that lower bracket quarterfinal. I think if they'd played up against maybe OG, they could have had their number. But Liquid over the past, I think it was like,
but again, that's
2
like
years or
that's
something?
that's on Tundra for losing to 9 Pandas. Just win XD.
Very true.
NXT.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about getting top 6 if you just win and guarantee yourself top 3. But
Exactly.
it is one of those things where sometimes
Why don't more teams just do that? Why don't more teams just win?
I don't know. That's a real question that I would like to pose to some of these players. Why don't you just win? But and this is something that's kind of circling back to like Western European dominance is you're going to be running into a lot more Western European teams if you are a good Western European team because there's just going to be more of them in the playoffs because they have been playing so well over the last couple of majors. And at the end of the day, it was I can't remember, it was Zibe from Into the Breach when I was covering DPC Div 2, and he said at the end of the day, it's not about certain teams' results; it's about how these teams match up with each other. So even if Tundra has been on a complete streak at the end, over the last 2 years, it has been Liquid that has had the better of them. So I think
Always, yeah.
I mean, it's all about team matchups rather than momentum for some of these teams.
In 2023, Liquid are 5-0 versus Tundra.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the same with for the OG Liquid. That was a surprise where OG were able to beat them, but it's the same with Gladiators and Liquid as well.
Yeah.
Like it's like you just said, with the stats kind of back it up a little bit. That's a lot of it goes down to matchups and how you're able to perform on the day.
And that's definitely a monkey that some of those teams are going to hopefully try and shake off, especially going into TI. Like if you're like Liquid and you run into Gaming Gladiators again in like a TI bracket playoff, you're going to be like, fuck me dead. Like how many times do we have to try and beat these kids before we can actually get a tournament dub? And maybe who knows? Who really knows? All right.
A lot of teams would be very happy to get second, but you just have a look at some of the Liquid players' socials, and they're like, second again?
Yeah.
God damn it.
It's like that time when Shopify were EG and they were getting third at like everything, right? And at some point you would give up those multiple thirds just for one dub, right? And that's a lot of players. They would give up every second throughout the entire year if it means they get the win TI.
Oh, for sure.
We'll
You're
wait
set up
and
for
see.
life if you win TI.
We'll wait and see with TI. So next thing I wanted to talk about, we've already touched on it a little bit, is the Quinn and Ramses beef. This is not. I don't want to talk specifically about the beef because I think that is something that I don't have full information about. Maybe you guys do, but I think it's really, really good for a lot of the players, a lot of the talent, and the broadcast itself to have this beef. Whether or not the beef comes from something that is negative, I think the idea of rivalries and rivalries that aren't artificial are super important for people to get invested in the games and get invested in these players. Like the Quinn and the Ramses one is they specifically do not like each other, and there is that little bit of extra on the line, I think, in the game. Yes, it was, an upper bracket to secure yourself into the grand final of the major. That means a lot to itself. But playing up against a player that you legitimately don't like, everybody's had this in pubs, right? Like if you run into that same name, you've just avoided them from the previous game, you've got them in your next game, you try a lot harder. And it just gives you that little bit extra. And I think it is healthy that these players have these beasts, and I like the way that both Quinn and Ramses did handle it as well. I don't think it got ugly, didn't get weird. It was very much one of those things.
I'm gonna fucking beat him, is what it was.
Yeah, basically, it was one of those things where I'm gonna prove that I'm better than you, and they let the Dota do the talking.
I think it's good for the scene as well. Like, I mean, I come from when I was introduced to esports, it was through Call of Duty. I mean, Call of Duty as I mean, it's pretty well known that there's a lot of
Trash talking.
personalities trash talking, and it really makes it easier to latch onto a player and enjoy them or dislike them, and it helps with viewership or not a lot as well. I'm not saying you should fake it, but I don't think it's something that should be looked down upon if there's some if there is that kind of beef and hype and trash talk going on inside the game. So I think it's better as on personally. I don't know what you think, Matt.
I mean, I've always said that, like, I think esports needs to be as close to professional wrestling as possible. Give people entrance music. Uh, It's hard because no one really wants to be the bad guy, because there is a lot of hate that comes through from, the fans, and some people can deal with it, some can't. But I think, good natured beef where you've got like a heel, like a villain that everyone knows is playing that role, is good. Like, you have that in the fighting game community with Hungrybox, for example. Like, he plays the heel perfectly. He plays a character that is pretty boring, can stall out the games, and when he wins, he like pops off, even if it's like a win that doesn't win the whole tournament. So people are like, "Come on, man, really?" But he's one of the greatest of all time, and I think if Dota can get close to that, I would absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think I've spoken about this a few times where I think a lot of players kind of just need to have that personal brand, and I think Quinn has been one of those players that has really been able to push that himself and have this identity as a player. Not only is he an extremely skilled mid player, but you watch his stream and you watch the way the interaction on socials and all that kind of stuff, and it just kind of adds to it, and it just enables you to get behind these players and really enjoy them. Whereas there is a boatload of players that are just faceless players. I think like none of them really have a personality. They're really good when it comes to we can talk about their signature heroes and all that kind of stuff, but you wouldn't be able to tell them from a bar of soap, I think, outside of that. And I think a lot of these players can really learn from that to give them a little bit of extra push, because you look at players that like have these massive kind of followings. You players like Puppy, Dendy, even Samael, like they have these personalities in these interviews and the way that they handle themselves on socials and in the game and that kind of stuff. And that is really what builds your brand and gets people excited to watch you, because Dota, I think, is kind of unique in the fact that a lot of players have fans rather than teams have fans, right? So much more people will follow a player rather than they will a team because of the nature of esports and the nature of Dota for the last 10 years. So it is always good when I get to see these players put something extra on the line, I think.
I'm just gonna like, because of their success, they're getting a little bit more of that exposure just through winners interviews. But I'm just gonna use a Southeast Asian example, right? Like, Jabs is very personable in person, but he doesn't necessarily put a lot to build up his brand. But he's, a very easygoing guy. He's a great Dota player. But someone like him or Tino, for example, you compare that to someone like, I don't know, Dreamercell, for example, who hasn't had the same level of competitive success, but he's got a bit of a brand for himself. He streams very regularly. He has his signature stuff that people go, like, people love following In Your Dream as well, like Kami-sama, like the god, basically. People like to follow him. And I feel like there's some argument to say that, well, Western European teams get a little bit more exposure in that regard, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, Arteezy has a very established brand. Samael established his brand in North America. Yes, they're very skilled, but also it was just about what they did with the platform that they had. And I feel like there are a lot of teams that just aren't using that to its full effectiveness.
100%. And I think some players can pull on that, because at the end of the day, I think even Quinn's talked about this. It's like, once your Dota career is over, like, what are you actually going to do? And that's why I think it's important for these players to put a lot of emphasis into their brand, and that just enables you to have a few more opportunities. So it's
Did you
good.
see the Insania interview, by the way, where he's like, at the end of the day, we want to play entertaining Dota. I think he even gave an example where he was like, we were playing this game with the Medusa, and they were like, well, we could wait until we hit our Skadi timing, but fuck it, let's go. Let's make it exciting. Let's make a team fight happen. And, go off if that's how you want to be able to think about things. As long as it's a conscious decision that you're making together as a team, why not? And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that for Liquid now that they're guaranteed going to TI.
Yeah, that's super exciting, man, and I'm very excited to see what Liquid get to do. And kind of touching off the back of like some of these players making a brand for themselves, I was super impressed with PPD throughout this entire broadcast. I've been advocating this for a very, very long time, and this is no flame to any other talent that's out there in any other esport that is watching this, but some talent, it's very boring to watch everybody try and find.
Everyone agrees with each other.
Everyone agrees with each other, and there's nobody that's there that's really kind of just says what everybody's thinking, and I think that's what PPD kind of brought. Sometimes I will agree. I did think
he
that
plays the heel, right?
He went a little too far in some of the panels. I think there was maybe it was in the group stages. It was one of the EG games, I think, and he really tore them to pieces and was like, "Well, okay, dude, relax a little bit." But there are some situations where he was happy to talk about bad drafting or poor decisions and all that kind of stuff,
or even just talking about Sumail, right? Like he was like, "Come on, this guy's going to go back to Div 2. He deserves to be on a Div 1 team. How long is he going to be held back?" Like that was his words that I feel like a lot of people have been thinking, essentially.
And that's why, as you said, Matt, like he played the heel really well. Sometimes he did go a little far, but that was just a nice little breath of fresh air for me for him to just be able to come in and be the old PPD. I think a little bit too much of that could be a bit detrimental to a broadcast, but it is always nice when you have these pro players who have these opinions that can kind of throw them out there and people will respect them.
It's something that Effie does pretty well as well, to be honest. Like she doesn't necessarily go into like slamming teams for a bad draft or something like that, but she's not afraid to have her convictions in the point that she thinks is true. She's not just going to agree because she thinks it'll rock the boat. She's like, no, this is what I think is true, and here's why. And I think that's something that a lot more talent do need to do.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, a lot of people have different ideas on how to play the game of Dota, and it's important to be able to get your point across. So I think we've kind of finally, maybe, I don't know about finally, but we're seeing that a little bit more now with talent, which is always good, because over the past like year, 2 years, we've heard like ideas be a word that is used pretty regular. I mean, going back to, I think, TI10, the grand finals panel with AUI, Seb and No-Tail, they were speaking about it a lot. And then, of course, we hear, in some of the videos that we get to see, and just in particular, people speaking about who has the better idea going to TI and etc. So it's just, at the end of the day, you just need to voice that. And if it's nice that you have people like PPD in particular who is able to do that.
I think it was really nice to hear some of his opinions, and also it was really good to have No-Tail. I think that was a kind of, I was surprised about that the addition of Notes. Not surprised that he did really well, because obviously he's a 2-tier winner. He's insane when it comes to Dota. But I think the way that he was able to explain a lot of the concepts and explain why people were doing certain things and why they were doing them in certain manners was really cool. And I think, unfortunate for you, Mr. Danog, that pro players are very, very good when it comes to explaining the game of Dota 2. You are as well, but... They hit that little bit extra diff, like.
Well, I think they've just got the
gravity
behind their opinion, right?
Yeah.
Because they've backed it up on a professional stage. I think that's the big difference, right? And I think a lot of people were saying that they really like No-Tail on the panel, but even like during the casting, they felt like maybe it's just because they were expecting OD Fogged grand finals that they just it wasn't what they were expecting. Again, I'm one of the biggest No-Tail fans you'll ever meet, but everyone's good at something, and there were some times where he was spot on, but there are other times where people, I don't know, were kind of left wanting more. But everyone's different at something. Some people have great days, some people have not so great days, but overall I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I think he did really good, and I'm excited to see what the TI talent lineup is going to look like when we eventually do get there. Speaking of TI and speaking of Liquid so far, they've got themselves qualified to TI, the first team to be able to lock themselves into TI guaranteed, so they don't literally need to do nothing until TI rocks up. So that's good for Liquid, but the question is now, what do they really do? Like, do you guys feel like they should still try and put in 110%? Do you feel like maybe drop it down a couple of gears, just go, kind of cruise through the motions when it comes to DPC? I understand they're all insane competitors and you need to be able to keep yourself to a certain standard going into TI so you don't lose all your form, but does this just kind of change the way they look at the last tour and the last major?
I just think they won't boot camp for the third tour, because they've been they've been away for Dream League for ages now. Then you just had the major. I mean, you were probably boot camping as well. There wouldn't have been much of a break in between that. So
They're probably going to go to Riyadh. They're
yeah,
probably going to go to Bali.
exactly. So I'd be surprised if they boot camp for at least the entire third tour. Maybe they might do a week, because I know some teams do, like, they're happy with doing a week or 2 weeks or something like that. That's really all I can think of. For them, they're all competitive at heart. They still want to win, and I honestly think the big thing for them, they really need to beat GG before they get to TI, because if they still don't, that's going to be a huge monkey on their back. So at least for them, they take a little bit of a break, don't boot camp, you try and beat Gladiators, and look towards TI.
Okay. That's fair. I think so. I just finished listening to the Cap and Blitz podcast, and I think Blitz was saying exactly as you said, Aries. I think they're just not going to boot camp for a while until they kind of have to, and then just kind of cruise through stuff. I personally feel like they can kind of just do whatever they need to. At the end of the day, like they don't have to worry.
They
about
still want to be in
DTC.
Div 1 though.
Yeah,
But that
next year.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is like you need to make sure that you stay in Div 1, and you also probably want to try and get yourself towards the major, because if there is a few patches that drop, you want to have that experience
More experience is
internationally.
always good. Yeah.
Fucking money.
And the money's always nice as well. But yeah, I definitely
I think
agree
they'd
with
be
you, Aries.
satisfied with 4th in the tour.
Yeah, like just cruise in, get yourself into the major, and then just cruise to the major. But I definitely agree with you, Aries. I think they have to convincingly beat gaming, whether it be once or like a couple of times. They really need to make sure that they've got that team on lock, because if that is like their bogey team going into TI, all it takes is for them to run into them in the worst possible spot, and then that's TI run over.
Yeah, it's dumb. So, yeah, no, I agree. Just go through the motions and have a nice, relaxing couple of months.
Just chill out. You got TI on lock. There's not going to be a mega patch before here in TI. There's probably going to be a few letter patches, I'd imagine, through some of the breaks. But I don't think Dota itself is going to change all too much going through it. So making sure you keep the energy levels high and keep everybody not being burnt out. So this is kind of towards the end. We've got a few more topics here. We've already touched on one of them, but what's everyone's favorite bit of the major so far? Whether it was a little content piece, was it some of the games, was it something cool when it came to some hero tech? Like what do we think, Dan? We'll start with you. What was your favorite bit?
It's always going to come down to the games for me. I mean, the lower bracket runs of EG and Liquid were really inspiring. Nine Pandas, OG having a really good performance. The game of the tournament to me was the EG v Talon game 1 in the lower bracket, where I think Talon did almost everything perfectly for the first like 40 minutes of the game, but then Bakaz just became unkillable and he basically 1v5 for them. I think his entire team basically expended all of their tips, just tipping him off the back of some of his big plays. So you love those, like, Bakaz was already like the carry of the SA region. He was the carry that's being scouted out by a lot of Western Europe teams when TI shuffles come around. But, things like that really just cement his place there. So that's it for me.
Yeah, because on the main stage is a fucking scary guy, dude. Go remember TI. They also had an incredible run there as well. So, for
Give
me,
him like that really hard carry, right? The Void, the PA, like that's where he's really going to dominate.
Yeah, he's probably top 3 my favorite carries to watch at the moment. Yeah, I'm very big Bakaz fan, but for me, maybe my favorite piece, at least nothing too crazy, but one thing that stands out for me was a content piece they did towards one of the break. I think it was towards the later end, actually, the playoffs, where they got some of the viewers up on stage and they were doing voices of Dota players and trying to.
Luke hates this.
Oh, no?
He's a voice line kid.
Dude, I'm so
well-
pissed at how bad they were at that.
Oh yeah,
That
it
shit
was pretty bad.
so easy.
Oh, what was it? There was a couple I didn't know. and
Okay,
I was
there was one that was intentionally supposed to be like a red herring. It was the PL one where it's like the same voice actor
that got me,
between
yeah.
PL and whoever it
Rubik.
was,
I think
and
Rubik,
Rubik.
yeah.
And it's like the line is very similar between both those two heroes, but all the rest of them were so easy. I got every
wow.
single one. They are like. Voice line, I don't know if you guys are the same, but I know a lot of players for some reason play without sounds in Dota. The sound
that's fucking who do you know? They're definitely not pro players.
They
tell you
turn
that for
off
certain.
everything. And there's some people that have like, you know how you can have like the subtitles of like the voice lines and stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they'll
yeah, on the
read
right.
them, but they won't have like the actual sound. There's
Oh,
I
God.
know heaps of people who said I play without sound. The sound in Dota is the best part about the game.
Yep.
It sounds so sick. Everything sounds amazing.
The different breed of people they are who play with no sound. I don't know. That makes no sense to me. But
yeah, like that thing triggered the fuck out of me.
Well, I thought it was cool the fact that you actually put some i9s on the line as well. Some fucking that's quite the prize, a big CPU. So that was one thing for me. Just at least and also because Matt and I had the opportunity to go to Stockholm last year. It looked like it was very similar setup this year as well in Berlin, at least from what we were able to see on stream on towards the stage. And I think they did a awesome job with the stage setup and from what at least I could see as a viewer on Twitch. So was very impressed with the product ESL put forth.
Yeah, I think they've gotten a lot of praise as well from the community about how good the event was, and I think a big thing for a lot of the attendees that I saw was how quickly they rectified some issues. I know there was some issues with like the screens and like where some cameras were placed and not getting all the information they wanted out to the members, and they rectified that really, really fast. And I think that was really good. I think personally for me, it was a lot of the Slacks content. I think his interviews, like during some of the downtime and the transitions between games and stuff like that, was really kept me entertained. And I think that guy is literally 1 in a million. I don't think anybody ever could find anybody who is as good as their job as Sir Action Slacks is, who is so down to earth, but also he can be insanely professional. He can also be insanely cringy, but he can also be extremely funny. And I think it is a very rare quality to be able to have all three of those at once and be able to understand the community as much as he does. So
maybe like Eric Andre is the only one I can think of that fits the same sort of mold.
And he's insanely good at everything he does, and they throw him into the most bizarre, strange scenarios, and he works his way out of it.
When they get to the group stage, when he crawled in his little pit that he had for us, and he like pulled a garbage bag full of trash over him, just like good night.
Yeah,
like
you said,
oh, he's crazy.
He's a 1 in a million. He's a 1 in a million person. For me, I think the big thing that I'm always impressed by with him is just his interviews with players. Because like we spoke about earlier with personalities and all that, I think it's very difficult to bring out personalities from players and get a full sentence, sometimes 2-3 sentence answers in interviews. And Slacks is able to do that with people you wouldn't even expect. So that's always one thing I've been quite impressed about.
I mean, just on that point, like I just think back to ESL One Malaysia, where Sumail versus Armel 1v1 mid, and he's dubbing Armel the Kingslayer, and now people are calling him the Kingslayer from now on because he actually was able to bring that out of Armel.
Yeah, and like stuff like that is insane, and I think a lot of the parody interviews as well that he did with like with Sumail, where he was talking and then they were translating it to Chinese, and then Sumail was talking back in English and that shit was. When he did the Medusa
and then
thing.
He said something very bad.
Yes. That was quite funny.
Yeah, there's some insane stuff that comes out from Sir Action Slacks, and he is genuinely one of the best human beings I've ever met as well. That guy is 1 in a million. So, yeah, I mean, the whole major was sick. I think it was awesome. I'm really impressed with ESL, and I'm really excited to see what they do for like Riyadh and all that kind of stuff when we get there towards the end. And I've got one last topic before we say goodbye to everyone here, boys. So there is a big gap in the Dota 2 schedule. We have already talked about the fact that there's no LCQs going in towards TI, but there is a big old gap when it comes to the end of Riyadh and the start of TI. Do we feel like this is the resurgence of more of these Tier 3 tournaments, or do we think that teams are going to take the break trying to get into America? You know, the fact that it's in Seattle once again, and we've already seen the issues with getting visas for some of these teams.
Start swimming.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I hope there's... Well, I'm just trying to think of organizers that can run third-party stuff, because I mean I don't know
on quick notice as well.
That's the big thing.
I'm pretty sure a lot of these other organizers just didn't know the specifics around TI or the times because Valve keep pretty tight-lipped, I think.
Mm.
So how many people, let's say like, I don't know, end of August to be safe, right? And to leave space for TI qualifiers and all that sort of stuff. There's nothing going on for basically all of August, so if you put something on at the end of August, there shouldn't be issues. Gives times for visas, blah, blah, blah. Who can put an event on from start to finish in, let's see, 4 months? 4 months is not a long time to put an entire event on if it's going to be an in-person event. Maybe we play. That's all I can really think
We
of.
play in like OGAs, all I can think of. But fucking even in person, I don't know if I'd put OGA in that category. There's not a lot. Even online as well, there's not a lot for like to include tier 1 teams too. So I don't know what the hell's gonna happen in that gap. I really don't know.
Do we think it's like maybe the resurgence of some of these different tournaments? I know Sunsfan in the past has done things like Captain's Draft. They've
Midas
done
mode.
reverse, Midas mode, reverse Captain's Draft, like ability draft. Like, do we think that maybe it might be time for some more of these jovial kind of tournaments to give that little bit of extra space? Because I know I really enjoyed Captain's Draft. I think that shit was sick. I think that was really cool way of getting these players to think about the game a little bit of a different way. Would you guys like to see these extra modes or what?
There was all custom modes as well, right? So you need to give people time to be able to make them. And I have no idea how much programming or that sort of stuff is required into it. So like, how much time do people need? How much money is on the table for people to potentially do this or get for this prize pool for these tournaments? You know, who knows? Who knows? Hopefully someone does something because 2.5 months without anything at all at the pro level other than like some, tier 3 like Moon Studio style tournaments, some Bet Boom style tournaments. I don't think that's going to be enough. People will want to see people play on LAN in some capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know who's going to run them. That's kind of the big issue. But hopefully there will be tournament organizers that put their hand up and feel like they have the capability to run an event.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think it all kind of comes down to, I'd imagine it's going to be PGL running TI again, right? We haven't heard.
You'd imagine.
We haven't heard anything in opposite of that. So I'd imagine that PGL and ESL are going to be tied up with the two big tournaments either side of the break. So yeah, I think it is going to be maybe whether or not some of these organizers want to try and step their foot into it and see what comes out, because as Matt did say, it's going to be very disappointing if we're going to have a few months. That's it, boys. I think we basically talked about everything. We talked about TI, really kind of busting our balls a little bit. We talked about the major itself. Gaming Gladiators, very, very strong team. Team Liquid, also a very, very strong team. Talked about everything. Do you guys? Is there anything you guys want to say before we say goodbye and good night?
Matt smells. That's all from me, folks.
Oh shit! Hit him with a truth bomb. Any retorts, Matt?
I'll just let him linger in his sweat after the gym. I hope you get a lot of ingrown hairs in the future.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
That was his response.
I wasn't expecting abuse. He cheated on me during the major casting, and he just has to rub salt in the wound. So.
Oh shit! We talked about beef. This beef is very healthy between you boys right now. I'm liking it.
Vegans look away.
Dude, I can't wait for the DPC cast and all the Reddit threads just being like, do Danok and Aries actually hate each other but just cast together? Real question. That's for you Redditors out there. You guys can try and figure that out. But we're gonna say goodbye. We're gonna say goodnight here on the Dota 2 recap show. I'm not sure when we're going to do this again, boys. Maybe we just turn this into a shit talk every 2 weeks or some shit. I don't fucking know. We'll figure it out.
Shit talk.
I'm always down to shit talk.
Yeah,
I'm always down.
Especially around Aries.
Jesus. All right. You two can kiss and make up after this, and we'll figure out what we're going to do. Figure out what you guys are going to do in the future as well. So thank you, as always, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another episode here of the Dota 2 recap show. Make sure you do go follow these two bozos on Twitter so you can... I don't know. I think they tweet stuff eventually when
and
it
Fluke
comes
as well.
to Dota. And me, if you guys want to. I do shit post a decent amount. But anyways, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode here. So as always, stay safe, and we'll see you guys for the next one.